Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Tonight, we're welcomed with the appearance of science fiction writer and comic writer Braxton Cosby. Braxton, welcome to the channel.
Hey, how you doing, Ian? Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I always love having new guests, new creators. Well, new to me, I should say. New to me, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Typically, what I ask, with every new guest on some of the show, pretty much, how did you get started as a writer?
My writing journey was like a spiritual thing because I never really wanted to be a writer. Growing up, I was this, student and student athlete, really. And I always was forced to read books that I didn't like. I remember like third and fifth grade, I remember reading books like Silas Marner and How to Build a Fire. And these stories were like just boring. I didn't identify with any of the characters. And it wasn't until I actually read Fahrenheit 451. And as a kid,
Ooh.
I guess that was a little twisted. They had a book, book that was written about burning books. So I was like, well, that's a cool concept. So that was like my first introduction to sci-fi and actually dystopian science fiction. So that kind of got me interested into reading. And I just continued just to find books that I liked. I loved a lot of those choose your own adventure books, man. Those are like the greatest things.
Yeah.
And so that got me excited about reading. And when I went into college, every kind of essay format class that I had, I got A's in. I mean, it didn't matter if it was history, physics, whatever. If I could explain it, I could actually get my words out and my ideas, and I could get A's in them. But I hated like multiple choice tests. So I guess I had a vernacular for explaining and describing things pretty well.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated college, I remember going to church one day and the pastor was talking about he was in the scripture and he was saying God was talking to him, that he was trying to choose people to do some things that they had never done before, but nobody was asking. So I immediately just started praying. Like, okay, well, God, what would you want me to do? And I just heard this voice say, write a book. And I just kind of laughed at it because I was like, man, if there was about writing a book. And then the idea just kind of took a root and started growing. I actually started scripting out a plot right there on the back of one of the pamphlets. And when I was thinking, like, what would I write? I kept just hearing this voice say all those cool things that you saw, because I was a big movie buff back in the day. And although I remember I would look at movies like, man, that's a really cool movie, but I wish they had done this with it. I wish they had gone this way with it. It was like, hey, put all those things in your book. And I was like, man, okay, that's a cool idea. So I started just kind of doing that, crafting all the imagery and the ideas that I had about stories and starting to put them into my own story. And I started doing some research on how it was to get published, how it was to actually write, come up with outlines and all these things. And I just became a little bit of a student at that time of just writing and getting it done. So I think the hardest thing for me was actually get it done, because I had this trilogy mapped out in my brain, which is, I don't recommend anybody to ever write something like that. You start with a novella, something very small, maybe even a short story, some fan fiction. But when you go and you kind of put a trilogy on your back, you're asking for a lot of weight and pressure. And so, crazy as I am, I like the pressure. So I went with it. And I got the first book done. It was 90,000 words. I was protostar. And then I shopped it around. A friend of mine knew a local family friend who was publishing, Firefly Publishing out of Atlanta. And I pitched it to her and said, hey, would you take a look at this? And she read it and she loved it. She's like, yeah, we could publish it. So we went ahead into the publishing process. So maybe like 6 to 8 months later, it was out. And Protostar was born, and ended up getting some really good reviews on it because the concept was just fresh. And Reader's Favorite gave me like a 5-star review, and then eventually went on to win Reader's Favorite Book of the Year award for sci-fi romance. And then it got CLC's Book of the Year award for young adult sci-fi. So I was like, oh, man, I got something going here. And so from there, I ended up finishing out the trilogy. But along the way, Firefly, she decided to close up shop, got me the rights back. I got a literary agent at that time. We shopped it out to a few publishing houses, got it in with one. And we just didn't agree on the scope or direction of the story going forward. So I finally just got it back. And I was like, you know what? I'll just do it myself at this point. And just decided to open up Cosby Media Productions. And, we're a small press company out of Atlanta. And we published over 30 authors with 60 titles in ebook, audio books, and paperbacks. But our vision, my vision always was to just be a partner of the authors, because I realized the road that I had gone through was not an easy one. And I was just like, man, why is everybody taking so much from the authors, giving you a 10% royalty and just like really almost nothing for your work. And so we gave very good royalties, and we never even had an open to submission process. But as we published authors, people who I ran into who just had great ideas, they had friends who had a great idea and they just brought theirs along. And if I was interested, we just picked it up. And so we just kind of built up momentum and started having this really nice stable of authors who just had some wonderful ideas and some great stories. So then we were just really branching out. We ended up getting poetry. We had inspirational stuff. We had self-help books. I published my my health book through Charisma House Media, being a physical therapist. And then I partnered with Gail Devers, who is an ex-Olympian and world champion in track and field, did her biography with Mike Clemens and Christian Alexo, kind of these autobiographies called My Life and Story, where they give me all the information about their life that they want to tell in that story. And I kind of use the fictional glue and prose to kind of bring everything together to let it run smoothly. So, so I just started writing. And from 2010 till now, 20 books, 20 novels out. I got into screenplay writing for a little bit. I did a kind of a writer for hire to write somebody's short film. And I've written 4 scripts now. Got one that was like a quarterfinalist for a writing contest. And then I ended up diving into comic books because me and 5 other authors that we've published with our superhero fiction, we kind of made up our own superhero universe where we referenced one another's superheroes and we brought them together in a crossover called Infinity 7, books 1 and 2. And we were like in 2020 doing conventions and people were coming by the table. Oh, I like this. Is this a graphic novel? I was like, no, it's a novel. It's a superhero novel. Oh, okay. Some would pick it up, some wouldn't. Do you have a comic book? Like, no, we don't. And I started going, man, what if we could attach comics to these stories? What would that be like? Give a nice rich background and on an origin story in a novel format, but then just kind of go forward with all this great action pieces and all of that in a comic, and people could really kind of see these characters come to life. And so I partnered with the other 5 authors. We were crazy enough to run a Kickstarter, and we got it funded. And so we ended up kind of going on this search for artists who could kind of bring our stories to life. And we partnered with quite a few of those. They did a fantastic job of bringing all of our stuff together. And we had first 4 issues under Star Child Comics, which is our comic book imprint of Cosby Media Productions. And then we've set sail since then. We've since published, we're on, I think, a 12th comic book now. And,
Wow.
To go along with our stories, we don't reset anything in. We don't like the first book of the Cape is not redone in a comic book form. It's actually a continuation. So we consider our comics books, even though they're just a comic and maybe only 24, 27 pages, but we feel as if it's part of that saga. So it's the 3rd book, of the series. It's the 4th book, whatever you have. And we're just continuing to push from there.
That's actually very clever, because you're saying the comics are a continuation of the novels, because that makes people want to buy the novels and say, how does this start? How did we get from here to this point? So that's very smart.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting too, just giving people a different format, because I have a lot of people come to the table and go, man, I haven't read a comic book and I don't know how long, but this looks interesting. I'll get that. And this is the novel that goes with it. Okay, well, let me grab that too. And then so you get these multiple purchases when people come to the table because they want to get the entire set. And in each one of our comics, what we did on the last page, we kind of be like, hey, catch up on the story, and we'll give them a picture of what the book is and a QR code that takes them to our website. So they scan that, they'll go back and be able to read like, oh, okay, well, this goes with this. And if they didn't pick it up at the convention that day, they can always go back and get the ebook, the audiobook, or the paperback being linked through our website.
Wow. This is very smart. This is very clever.
Thank you. We call it hybrid publishing. That's what we're a hybrid publisher. It's all in-house. We publish our own comics and our own novels, so people can get a little bit of both. And so a lot of our stories, mine, I have Steel Rain Bounty Hunter series. The comic book is here. This art was done by Daniel Max did the art for me. and Jose Caballero did the. He's our colorist and letterer. He just does a phenomenal job. And I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so to get a chance to write a bounty hunter story and have some of this stuff come to life like this on these pages was just a dream for me. You know, we got bloom lighting in there. We have all these great angles, these glorious colors and everything to really bring the stories to life. So that was a chance for me to bring Steel Rain to the color form and get him on a floppy. So people have really loved Steel Rain. It's still my number one comic and novel that I sell. It's an international bestseller for the novel, and the comic book is like right there. So I'm already working on the next iteration. So the comic book was the prequel, pre-flight. The novel was the Flight of the Starship Concorde, which ended up being a finalist on the American Legacy Book Awards for science fiction. And then I have the next comic is coming out that's going to bookend that and kind of lead into a larger story that I'm planning for 2027, which actually everything kind of built off of the Starcross saga with Protostar, Supernova, and Solstice. Steel Rain was the bounty hunter that I introduced in Solstice, and a lot of people were like, man, he was really cool. So that's why I write his own story and give him some legs of his own. So just really excited where all of that goes.
Yeah, you've already planned out a universe.
Absolutely.
This is what I love. You know, I love world building. You know, because you're taking backstories of some interesting characters and giving them a bit more depth. And yeah, clearly people are enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, when you build these worlds, man, and people jump in them, and then you go to a convention one year and they come back and they go, "Oh no, I was here last year. What do you have next?" It's like that's like really exciting, you know. And then they don't just buy that if you didn't have anything to add to it. Because I always try to have something to add to it, so when people come back, they pick up again. But if they don't, then they kind of venture into something else. And I had this one guy who's like, "Oh, I don't care whatever else you have that new this year. I'm getting that too because I think you're a great writer." So that's it's flattering and it's great because the stories that I tell, my challenge is I always tell myself, say, hey, the next story you write needs to be your favorite story. Because I tell people all the time, even when I do panels and I do any teachings on writing, I tell people, you write the story that you love first. Don't worry about trying to fit it into somebody else's box or what people suggest or what they feel like you need to do. You write the best story that you love. And if that love is real, it will come out in your book and somebody else is going to love it. Doesn't mean a million people are going to buy it, but somebody else is going to love it too. And if you can get that, man, that's just the greatest feeling of all, because you're telling your own story the way you want to tell it with your characters, build your own world. Like I said, I've got this science fiction world in Proxima Centauri, which is the next nearest galaxy over. And I've made up all these characters with their backstories and origins in there that I can play around in at all times. And I've got the superhero stuff that I've built with these other fantastic writers, such as Lawrence St. John, Daniel Payton, Keyshawn Dodds, and Kyle Champion, and all the characters that they bring to it. And then, and now I've got, and that ended up being 18 novels with 6 different comic books. So it's just a huge superhero world that we built. And now I've got Broken, which is my girl over my left shoulder here, Keisa Donovan, 16-year-old who is trapped in a dystopian world and everything has been lost since all-out nuclear war. And she's now a surrogate parent to her younger brother, Kieran. And they're trying to make their way in this crazy wasteland where there's zombies, there's wild people called hoarders, and there's also this military conglomerate called the Establishment, who has now reactivated slavery, where basically money has no value anymore in this world. So now they just trade people. So it's a class-based system. I've got these people, I'll trade you for that. And that's how they use it. They use people for commerce. And so 1% of the population of people who have actually ingested these ashes from the nuclear fallout have special abilities unlocked and powers, and they're very clairvoyant, ESP and all that great stuff. And Keisa's starting to have these dreams, and now it's pointing to her being what we call alphas. Maybe she's an alpha as well. So her story just begins to take flight after she escapes one of the slave pods in Savannah, and she hears whispers of this group called the Resistance that's going to try to overthrow the Establishment, and she joins up with them. And now it's just wild. She's out in the world and trying to live and figure out everything and just pick up the pieces of her life. So I'm really excited about that story.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly exciting. I'm already picturing a couple of images in my head just now, because, and I said this to my previous guest, saying if I was a director and if I took one of the images, from the book or graphic novel,
Right.
and just able to translate that, I was like, that's the money shot. That's it right there. So
Absolutely.
when I'm hearing this story, I'm like, this definitely could be a movie, if I'm being
Yes,
honest.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and that's how I always look at it. I try to look at writing stories that I feel will translate into something else. So, comic books and graphic novels became a really great outlet for me because, how do you finally see your story take flight? It's pages, it's words, and people have to kind of join in on what you're imagining as you put it on paper. But when you get the comic book and the artist is able to take your words and make the images on those panels come to life, you're almost seeing a movie in some
Yeah.
respects. It's like stop action pictures at this point, And so when I ended up doing took Broken
Mm.
and wrote that, ended up having Broken the comic book, which is actually said like that's book number 2 in the series, and the artist named Ram Silva had just did an amazing job of capturing Kisa with this deep emotion. This story is so emotionally powerful because Kisa's got she's battling a lot as far as like a 16-year-old being cast into this crazy world. So she's got some mental health issues that she's dealing with. She even wants to commit suicide at some point because she's just tired of living in this world. But she knows that the only thing that's tethering her and keeping her home is her care for her little brother because there's nobody to take care of him if she goes. And some of the images that I was able to capture, a lot of the story when I wrote these panels for Ram to create was really these emotional close-ups, where the characters, you really kind of get in their face and you can see the emotion in their face. And I really challenged Ron to be like, hey, make sure you capture anger here. You capture anxiety, you capture people just being lost and angry. And Kisa is just such a great display of this emotion because that's just the kind of person she is. So I really have these in-your-face conversations and dialogues that come out. And then, of course, because people want to see zombies, this was an opportunity to really, in the comic book, show and display Kisa's prowess for using these knives that her father taught her to use when she was young. And she's also a gymnast, too, so that kind of comes into play. And then when we went into the graphic novel with book 3, 60 pages here, we can really get into depth of letting the world itself be a character of its own, where we really dive into the Badlands a little further. We introduce some more creature types that Kisa runs into, and some other characters who are out in the wasteland still trying to survive as well. But you do get more of a bearing of these. You got these huge holes and craters in the ground from the nuclear blast that went off. So I really try to highlight the Badlands itself, and then just kind of have that all come full circle with just Kisa's character and some of the challenges that she's having, And so we just went we went as far as we could as far as pushing the storyline and getting just some real cool ideas on paper of how Kisa is being used to even try to control some of the Ashers as well. So we got to, it's a story that I'm really, really proud of because this thing just continues to take off. And like I said, it's just an emotional roller coaster for people who pick it up, because I don't want to write comic books just to be all flash and pretty pages. I really want hard, deep stories that really kind of tug at people's emotional heartstrings and really gets them connected to these characters. And I think like the graphic novel really gave me an opportunity to do it because I could go a little bit longer than the basic comic and still have the same artist on board who brought us book 2, brought us book 3 as well. And I had Luis Caballero who did all the colors and the lettering. And once you've done like 1 or 2 with the artist and the colorist, you guys just feed off each other. They know exactly what to give you for the tone and the imagery that you want to capture on those pages. So it's just magic. It just kind of flows.
Yeah, this goes back to stuff I've been saying to other creators as well, saying if you surround yourself with the best talent,
Mm-hmm.
it all works out well.
Absolutely.
So you've definitely been blessed with that talent, because just those pages alone are gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
makes me
Cape,
jealous.
I was blessed in the Cape too. That was my first comic book that I wrote. So I really got into scripting. There was a wonderful book called The Art of Comic Book Writing. I don't know if you ever heard of it before.
Ah,
Oh my God.
I have a copy. I have a
Of
copy.
course, you have to. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, you have to have this, because this thing tells you about how to do every angle, how to script out the movement and the time, and what the gutters really mean is like a lapse of time, how far you go, where you put your letters and your boxes to tell people how you just tell a story on a page and move people throughout that comic book. So that was like a Bible to me. And I just reference it so much. And it really went along with what I was taught as a novelist and as a script writer, 3-act structure. And the question was, can you take 3-act structure and put it into a comic book? And I was like, hell yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to waver from that. So all of my comic books are going to give you that 3-act structure, with that hero's journey, that inciting incident that moves them into the challenge, and the struggle of trying to get to the objective. And then what happens in Act 3? Do we just continue to move forward, or do we kind of close out and wait for the next story to be told? So I was blessed to do that. I got that one done with the Cape Hellfire. And I worked with Bruno Abdias. I don't know if you ever heard of him before, but he's an artist out of Brazil. And now he actually does the Cyborg series for DC. So you imagine, I was like, whoo, I got that when I could. And he was just such a whiz. I mean, Bruno was like just amazing. You give him he taught me, I would say panels on pages thinking I had a design, and he'd come up with something totally different. Just every page became almost like a work of art. And the way he stretched those panels and the way he would angle those panels, it got my mind really thinking like, oh man, comic book can be so much more than just, 6 panels, 2, 2, 2 all the way down.
Yeah.
So I started stretching my imagination on how I wanted my panels and my pages to be laid out. So I learned just a lot from him. And then so when I was able to get into issue 2 of the Cape, the Fabulous 5, I recruited over Marcelo Salazar, and I pushed him and he pushed me, and that one came out fabulous too. So at the conventions this year, we'll be taking Broken with us, and we'll also be taking the entire Cape series now that we've got issue 2 of the comic. So I'm excited to see how people receive it.
I think they're going to receive it very well, but just your enthusiasm about it. And yeah, you did. It's definitely the right steps, obviously, to creating this the comics, and even just the universe alone. So
absolutely,
yeah, you definitely got this. You definitely got this. You're fine. You're fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. So, you said you had a couple of conventions coming up this year. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So, down here in Atlanta, they came up with this Georgia indie author convention. They do it twice a year. I jumped in the first one. I was blessed that they received me for the first one. So March 22nd, anybody who's in Georgia, come on out to Marietta. You'll be able to look it up online, and it's going to feature me and a nice group of other authors who'll be having their books and writings available. So I'll be at that on March 22nd. Skip forward a little bit more. I'll be at in April. I'll be at the smaller Atlanta Comic-Con convention, which is down at the Hyatt, and I think that's April 10th, if I'm not mistaken. And then go a little fast forward from there. In June, I will be at Heroes Con in North Carolina, so that's always a fantastic vibe and a lot of great fandom there. And then in July, I'll be at the Atlanta Comic-Con, the larger show, which is down there at the Georgia World Convention Center. So a little busy, but we're picking up steam and we're just gonna keep rolling.
Okay, there's a couple of spots I gotta check out then.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll run into you. Maybe
come on through, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I definitely gotta check those out. Thanks. Yeah, but this is exciting.
I'm on your page. Let's talk about some of your characters too. I love that banner you got there. You said you were going to tell me about that story, so I want to hear. What is that about?
All right. myself and Eric Hernandez, who's the co-founder, we came up with our characters. It's a shared universe. His comic takes place in the modern age. Mine takes place in science fiction. Mine takes place in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So to talk about a little bit about his, it's called Solar Racer. This is his comic, and it's pretty much about this former this former stooge for the mob finds this gem, this
Mhm.
mystical gem, gives him powers. It's almost like Spawn,
Okay.
kind of like that, But Eric takes it in a much darker and deeper level because the story, in a lot of ways, is about redemption, which is always a great story. It's always
Absolutely.
something to fall back on. And he's written and illustrated about, I think, maybe 7 issues right now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. We have to obviously post it when those are going to be self-published because we do self-publish as well. But yeah, it's very exciting. We're playing a crossover with our characters.
Oh, that's
My
cool.
character, my comic is called Codename Hunter.
Okay.
It's about a secret agent, whose job is to protect the galaxy from terrorism, both domestic and extraterrestrial. It's pretty much James Bond meets Star Trek meets Star Wars with a
Okay.
dash of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm currently my fourth issue right
Okay.
now. I've already handed it off to the inker, Enrique Lopez, who's a talented inker, and we've just been, going over the script and all of that, and yeah, so I'm very excited about that. So far, I planned about 5 issues in this story arc. Then I've already started writing the next story arc,
Okay.
so it's going to be a big thing, and I'm
Good for
very
you.
excited. Yeah,
Yeah, good
it
for
was a
you.
long time coming. It was a long time coming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you go back? Do you ever go back to the time when you were like a kid holding a comic book and like
Oh,
just so mystified, like how somebody did something like that, and then here it is now, decades later, like you're looking at your own comic, and it's actually good quality too. Because I remember when I was in fifth grade, is the first time I actually tried to start my own comic book. Me and a friend of mine, and I drew my page. I think I drew like 6 pages, and I'm a decent artist. I'm nowhere near the talent that I work with. I know where my lane is, and I just kind of stay there. I would love it
mm.
if I knew how to do any of this. Then I wouldn't have to pay anybody. I just do it myself. But I trust the guys who I work with. And so that was like 5 pages. And I did that. And I was like, oh, this is great, man. I took it around and just kind of showed it to people. And to look at what I have now, with the help of so many talents out there who have helped put it together. And my job was just to make sure that the stories were good and interesting. And, I, I'm just in awe at the whole entire process, and I just feel blessed to actually bring these stories together with characters that I identify with, that other people do. Some of the marginalized characters that, again, it's a black female protagonist. Nobody sees that coming, and it's actually a good story. It's been well received. It was the highest category winner for the Fall Best Book Award for dystopian fiction. It was also another runner-up for dystopian fiction with the American Legacy Book Awards, and what is it? Online Book Club gave it like 5 stars, and Reader's Favorite gave it 5 stars. So I'm just grateful for how well it's received. But it was a story for me. With me having 3 girls, I wanted to write a story for them using their voices with their different age groups and just trying to compartmentalize all of that into the character of Kisa and how it is to be a 16-year-old girl with all this responsibility laid at her feet, and still trying to keep her mind in this world that has just really been taken from her. And so it was like my love letter to my girls to say, like, hey, in the world, things are going to be hard. They're going to be tough. Things are going to challenge you. Challenges are going to come out of nowhere and turn your world upside down sometime. But at the end of the day, if you can just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, you have another day to try to overcome and do better. And that's really what I wrote this for. And so for it to be well received, for the comics to just come to life the way they have, and for people to really just be so interested in the story is just like, it's love to me.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with myself because one of my characters, her name is Madison Anders. She's a very tough woman because
Mhm.
I feel that the female characters in comics should be tough. There shouldn't be any damsel in distress. But
Absolutely.
but it's also because I like those type of characters, but also I want her to inspire young women.
Right.
Saying you don't have to take this, okay? You don't have to take anything that anybody tells you. You can stand your own 2 feet. You can fight
Right.
back.
Right.
Maybe not with fists, but with words.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love the fact that you had your daughters in mind when you wrote that book, and I like that because you really see that. You really do.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing that you took that approach, saying, look, I have young daughters. So the world is going to be hard for them when they go
Absolutely.
get up. And if I could create a character that could inspire them and also say, look, when I grow up, I'm going to be like her.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so folks, obviously you've seen in the past 31 minutes, we actually had the link below,
Hmm.
which is actually on the Cosby Media relations page. So why don't we actually show them the page just for a minute? Just for a
We can
minute.
do that. Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. So obviously this is the typical bio page.
Hmm.
And here are the titles that we were just talking about.
Yep.
Wow. I definitely like the My Life in Story concept. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, these are definitely some books I have to buy, folks, because they just sound so cool. I mean,
Thank you.
Proto Star Supernova, even the Cape series sounds great. So
Yeah. Thank you.
I had to buy some stuff.
Yep.
And obviously, all of these are just novels right now.
Yeah,
All these
those
are
are the
novels.
novels. If you go back up, I can show you where to get on the comic page. Right down there says storefront.
Yeah.
Just click that, click on storefront, and then go right. Just
Okay.
click on that. You don't have to even move over. You don't have to move over. Just go right to comic books in store. Click on that,
Okay.
and then there you go. And then
Ooh.
now, so this just takes you to all of these items you see here are for sale at any time. You just click on them and buy them. We ship them right out from us, so you have all the comics. We have a compendium of all of our superhero stories in one place, which was really a work of love for me to kind of help script together, because we took all of the novels from all of our authors and we made a one-page comic page that actually has all these panels from the big moments of the novel itself on one side, and on the left hand side is actually a descriptor of what happened throughout the entire novel, so people could actually read those 2 pages for
Ooh.
any one of the novels and actually be updated on everything they had. And then once they got through with, they'll like, say if it's Menzuo, if you read all 4 of those in the compendium, those 4 comic pages in the summary, then we give you the entire comic book that you see right here, War at Home. So basically you get everything. So we basically 175 pages of just comic art and narrative that allows people to just catch up entirely on where we are with the CMPDSU. So that was fantastic. And people eat that up when we come to the conventions, because that way they don't have to go and try to buy everything. They can just get it all right there and just move forward. So if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, the CMPDSU compendium right there in the middle.
Wow.
Yep.
Ooh. Okay, exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Wow. This is stunning artwork, and wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am jealous. This is the first time I'm jealous. I wish I drew these pages.
Yeah, Rom does an amazing job at capturing these characters. He did all the individual book summaries for me. And then like all the other artists, you know, we have Fantasy Art Studios who did Bark. We have that's work from Marcelo Salazar. He's fantastic. He does all the inks too. So he does his own inks and he does the own colors too. So he colors and inks and he does the letters too. So Marcelo is just top notch. And I love his lighting, the way he kind of brings things to life on his pages for the Metatron series here.
Yeah. Oh, this is incredible. Wow.
And of course, there is Bruno. Bruno Obvious. His stuff is just insane. He did that with the cave.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Actually,
there's
this is
Marcelo again.
Wow. Great cover. Great cover.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. So obviously, you know where to go to purchase some of these things.
Yep.
And also, you can also find them on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in here, if people, you know, say for instance, they didn't want to buy from the storefront, if they go and they look at any of our superhero page, we have like if you go back to the main page, just you can click on anything home. When you scroll down past our ticker and stuff, we actually have everything in categories. So we talk about what makes us different as an independent publisher. But if you go down a little bit more, you'll see the book genres that we have. You have, you know, new adult, you have fantasy, you have superhero fiction, you know, whatever you like, we have it. And if you click on any one of those, you'll see all of our offerings from those categories, you know, and then those will take you, you know, there's Amethyst, and you could do a buy now, or you can go to Amazon and pick it up, you know.
Wow. This is fantastic. This is really fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, just looking at the different titles, I'm seeing an animated series at some point. At some point. I don't want to put pressure, but I'm seeing it at some point.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. Like I said, folks, the link is down below.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were you, I'd just buy some of this awesome stuff, or just go to conventions, you know, and just find Braxton, because he's definitely going to give you some stuff that you'll want to go take home.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, folks. As usual, I like to plug in my own stuff, especially since I have a convention coming up this weekend. It's the Indie Comic Creator Con in New Haven, Connecticut. So that's going to be very exciting for us. Mm-hmm. As you can see at the bottom there, this is a link to my own storefront for tpublic.com, which has Lillian merch, which is my brand. And currently we have a new design up with one of my characters, Little Ian. It's a fictionalized version of me as a detective, as a kid
Very
detective.
Cool.
Yeah. And this is an Easter themed one. And this is actually going to be a trilogy. I'm currently working on the second design right now. Hopefully I'll have that done in a couple of days, maybe after the convention. And it comes in, all the designs come in t-shirts, coffee mugs, baseball caps. Yeah, hoodies, even long sleeve shirts. Yeah, and these are the designs. This is my Codename Hunter character. That was the cover for the first issue. This was actually done in 2018. And if any of you has followed my comic so far, you notice the artwork has gotten better. That's because I've been pushing myself a bit more.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good. Love to see that growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who are interested in where you can purchase Codename Hunter, here is where you can find it. You can find it on indieplanet.com. You can find all 3 issues right now. We do have a website. I'm just finalizing it, right? Yeah, in the process of finalizing it, so that'll be up and running soon. Yeah, so see, these are some of my test pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Very
funny, Eric. It's funny. Eric Hernandez actually did the colors for this one issue. Then I took over. Yeah, as you can see, all 3 issues.
very
So
cool.
I'm gonna be selling this at Indie Comic Career Con this weekend in New Haven, Connecticut. I'll probably post a video about what specifically I'll be selling at the convention, possibly tomorrow night. So I'll let you guys know, or you'll find out obviously. Braxton, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing all these goodies with us.
No, man, the pleasure was all mine. I appreciated being on there, and best to you with the convention this weekend. I know you're excited about that.
I'm very excited because you could probably tell my face.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And best of luck to you at the conventions you're going to be going to in the
Absolutely.
upcoming months.
Much
And
appreciated.
one of these days, I'm going to get down to Atlanta and we'll do a convention together.
Absolutely, man. Reach out. Let me know.
Absolutely.
Take it
Well,
easy. Thanks
folks,
for having me on.
of course. Well, folks, I think that's going to be it for us tonight. I'm A. Miller, and this has been Troop Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night.